Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from I Like to Eat Poop 5257. I have an open marriage and I am no more interested in my wife. AITA for leaving my wife for another woman. I, 41M, and my wife 40F are in an open marriage. I didn't desire the open marriage at all. My wife was the one who suggested our current situation. She implied that divorce was on the cards, and I've seen many great men get ruined financially and spiritually by divorce, so I complied because I love my daughter more than anyone else in the world. We made a few ground rules. Firstly, no mutual friends or co-workers. Secondly, no bringing them around the house when our daughter is around. And thirdly, that the situation would be private to avoid humiliating our daughter. These terms seemed reasonable, so I agreed. At first, I wasn't getting any action at all. I got no matches on dating apps, so I got off them. Then, I started focusing my attention on my daughter and work. I started earning much more money, and since my wife's job pays far more, I cut down my hours to 30 hours per week. As a result, I started doing more things with my daughter. We played video games together, and then I got her into Russian literature. I also started working out more, and I basically started moving into the basement, since the thought of even being next to my wife disgusted me. I just kept picturing her being railed by dozens of men, and now I can't even get hard thinking about her naked anymore. At this point, we are roommates with the common goal of raising our daughter and giving her the life she deserves. Then I had no debt and paid off the house. So I decided to use my spare time to work out more. I got into better shape. I also started writing short stories and poetry again. I used to write in my 20s, but was always told that as a man, I could only pursue things that made money. Though as I've gotten older, I don't really care about gender roles anymore. Anyways, I went to a poetry club where I meet Emily, 42F. We clicked, and I started going out with her. We started with critiquing each other's work after the club sessions ended, and things went from there. For me, I'm not into casual hookups with strangers. I need an emotional connection with my partner, and I want a companion who understands me first and foremost. Smashing is a nice addition. Now that I'm dating someone though, my wife has been asking about her, and I just told her about all this stuff. She seemed fine with it. Later though, she came to me and said that she wanted to repair our relationship, that she wanted to sleep in the same bed again, and she wanted to be intimate again. But honestly, I just feel nothing towards her at all. Sometimes looking at her even disgusts me. It literally turns my stomach. It's almost like when you smell rotten food. I bought the house myself, and my name is on all the papers. So I'm thinking of putting it in my dad or uncle's name, then filing for divorce and being with Emily. The only tough thing is custody. I don't want to do anything that will ruin my relationship with my daughter. Plus, it could look like I cheated on her for Emily, and she could say manipulative things about me to our daughter. But I'm strongly considering leaving her still, since it's obvious enough that she never really respected me as a partner. AITA? OP is not an AH for leaving his so-called wife for another woman, especially when they are in an open marriage, which I don't think is a thing. It is the name given to chaotic condition in a relationship. So OP is not an AH, and I would rate him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. However, OP's wife is an AH for initially making their marriage open, and now demanding her husband to work on their marriage, which literally does not exist. As for scores, I would rate OP's wife 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from the 010. AITA. The way I went about it? Early one Saturday morning, I woke up my wife of nearly 2 decades, told her I was moving out, and left our marital home immediately after. She was still wiping the crust out of her eyes when I walked out the door. Of course, I've been called the AH, and my ex-wife said it was fed up. Still blames me all this time later for the problems she has now. Either way, here is how I moved out. I found a place and secretly moved my belongings to that place over the course of a week, mostly finished moving on a Friday. I waited to load up my clothes, as to not attract attention, until early Saturday morning. After I loaded my clothes, I woke her up, told her I was moving out, and left within 5 minutes after I woke her up. Context: our 16-year relationship was nothing but chaos. Hell, we fought on our wedding night and went to bed angry LOL. It was mostly chaos mixed with good times here and there. It takes two to tango. so I have my part in all this as well. I am far from perfect. I'm not sure if I'm a good person. I may have been a partner. However, I do believe I'm a good father, and I felt like I had to escape for the sake of my kids and myself. It was killing my heart, knowing the psychological damage it was doing to my children. Because of several reasons, I couldn't get them out of the situation until one day, the stars aligned. I had some help from some people, and I was able to escape. I really do emphasize escape. That's the way I felt then, and it's still the way I feel now. My ex-wife was sometimes physically but always emotionally and verbally abusive. In the end, financially, I left without a pot to piss in. Over the years, she cheated on me several times, and I caught her messaging many other men, all while claiming she loved me one minute and we were soulmates, and the next, she couldn't wait to move out and find a real man. She threatened to move out numerous times, but of course never did. Honestly, find some videos on narcissistic exes. Find the subreddit for it. That is her and I's relationship. I felt less and less like a man. I couldn't escape, but at the same time, she was my soulmate. I don't know. I never thought that would happen to me, but somehow it did. I feel extremely ashamed because of it all, and how I let someone tear me and my children down so much. I could go on and on for days and days. I will only say this last thing about moving out. The only kind of notice I gave her was, a few months prior to me moving out, I told her, if I find a place, I'm going to move out. That was it. No more discussion or anything further until the day I finally left. I left in a hurry almost a year ago. It was obviously a shock for the kids, but honestly, the wildness of that household was so bad, they were more relieved than anything, which is extremely sad considering their young ages. Not getting out sooner is where I failed the most. I'll never forgive myself for that. I coach my kids' sports teams. I support them in their interests and talk with them about many things, as a parent should. They gravitate towards me heavily and always have. The day that I left, I came back to tell the kids in person. It was very emotional, but I assured them that I wasn't leaving them at all. I was just getting a new place, and they'd see me all the time. That first night, well, the kids called and asked to stay with me that same night and not be with their mom. I hadn't gotten internet or anything, and they still wanted their dad in a new scary place, over them staying alone at their home with their mother. Since then, my children live with me full-time and have pretty much since the day I moved out. I'm the custodial parent and so on. This new school year has been the best start to a school year that they've had in years. They are doing really good. Of course, in general, things could always be better, but they could always be worse. I will say, I do think it's in the kids' best interest to have their mom in their lives. So beyond being vigilant and having certain boundaries to ensure they are safe, I encourage her to get them whenever she can. Unfortunately, she rarely sees them. They haven't stayed overnight with her in almost a year. She hasn't cooked them a homemade meal in almost a year. They haven't been with her for more than 2 or 3 hours, for the limited number of times she has had them. It's sad, but the kids have slowly accepted these things. But they still miss their mom and wish, as any kid would. No matter the circumstance or the chaos, and putting that all aside, did my ex-wife deserve more of a notice about the move? Truly, AITA, in the way I went about moving out? No matter how OP moved out leaving his unfaithful wife, he took the best possible definition for his children and his own well-being. OP is not an AH, rather her wife is an AH, a bigger one for her behavior towards OP and the children. As for scores, I would rate OP's wife 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Railship Chronicles. I am suspicious of my wife and my friend's behavior. I want to check her phone. AITA? My wife, 30F, and I, 32M, just returned from a long weekend camping trip with 2 other couples, friends we've known for years. We had a great time, but something happened the morning we left that I can't shake. We were all packing up, getting ready to head back home. I was loading our car when I looked up and saw my wife and my friend. They were at the campsite several feet away. She was bent over to pick something up, and in that split second, I saw him reach out and squeeze her hip, sliding his hand down to her. My wife quickly pushed his hand away, but she didn't look upset. She was smiling at him, almost playfully. It all happened so fast, maybe a second or two, but it felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I glanced around, but no one else seemed to have seen it. His wife was busy packing up their car, and the other couple was further away, chatting about the ride back. The drive home was quiet. My wife tried making conversation, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying that scene over and over. When she asked why I was so quiet, I lied and said I was just thinking about work. The truth is, I was in shock. I didn't want to bring it up. If I mentioned it, she might tell me I was imagining things, that I was being ridiculous. The rest of the day, I felt like I was just moving on autopilot. I barely slept last night and can hardly focus at work today. My mind keeps racing, questioning every detail. Aside from what I saw, the rest of the trip was great and nothing seemed out of place. A part of me is wondering if read the whole situation wrong. But the look on her face, that smile, it was too friendly, too casual for something that crossed a line like that. I love my wife to death. We've been together since freshman year of college, and I've never had reason to doubt her. She's my best friend. But now, for the first time, there's this knot in my gut that I can't untangle. I've never been the type to snoop. I've always trusted her completely. But right now, I'm sitting here, wondering if I should check her phone. It's password protected, so even if I wanted to, I don't know how I'd do it without her finding out. This is eating me up, and I know I need to do something about it. WebTA to go through her phone? And even if I wanted to, how can I if it is password protected? Update. Found her iPad. It didn't have a password, so I got in and it is still connected to her phone. She has Telegram on it. They've been chatting on there. I am still going through the messages, but she is cheating. I am not falling apart yet. I'm trying to keep it together to make the correct next move without this up. What do I do? Do I confront her when she gets home? Do I go to his house and confront him? Please help. Update 2. Thank you all for your advice. I didn't tell her anything. I have locked myself up in my home office under the presence of needing to catch up on work. She is not suspicious. I kept the iPad with me. She hasn't used in so long she won't even know it's missing. I took pictures of all their messages using my phone as a safety measure as well. They have been chatting for at last 8 months as far as I can tell. Telegram is their main communication channel, it seems. They've sent each other messages and making plans on making their relationship official after leaving me and his wife. I can't believe she would do this to me. From the messages, I saw she had sent him a suggestive photo of herself on her way to the gym earlier this evening. And when she got back home, she started kissing me, wanting sex. I declined, saying I needed to get work done. I am confused right now and unable to think clearly, so I will follow the advice I am offered here. Lawyer, gather evidence. I will work on those. I also saw several comments advising me to separate my finances from hers. We co-own the apartment we live in and have joint bank accounts. My parents died in a car crash 2 years ago and left me a large inheritance, which she knows about. She does not have access to the money in that fund. Is there anything I need to do to protect myself there if it comes to that point? We don't have kids yet. Update 3. I work from home sometimes and didn't have any meetings this morning, so I spent it researching and calling lawyers. I have 2 consultations lined up for tomorrow, but the majority couldn't book me in until next week. I will tell his wife and show her proof as soon as I settle on a lawyer and get myself covered first. Once she's been informed, I will give her time to get her affairs in order and secure a lawyer if that's what she wants to do before I decide what to do next, such as confronting my wife. I don't understand how I'm feeling. I am not angry for some reason. Number maybe. Sick and nauseous when I think of the messages I've read, especially the sex messages. I just feel like I am just doing the things that I need to be doing right now, but it's almost like I am living somebody else's life. I don't know how long I can keep up the poker face without her noticing something is up. Thanks for your messages and support. Update 4. Guys, I am humbled by all the messages and advice I received. Not much has happened since yesterday, just keeping myself busy with work and the gym. The anniversary of my parents' passing is coming up in about a month, and she obviously knows this. So when she asked why I seemed off, I just told her I was thinking about them. I have consultations with several lawyers lined up, most next week, a few this afternoon. I will update after I settle on a lawyer and know what my options are. Update 5. I found a hell of a lawyer who managed to draft my divorce papers within days, which were filed this morning. I am in a no-fault jurisdiction, which meant all the evidence of the infidelity which I had gathered can't be used in court. The good news is that my inheritance is safe because I didn't use the money for marital expenses. Our condo was a wedding gift bought by both our parents. Each side contributed 50% to the down payment. So one of us will have to buy the other out, or we both sell it. I called the OBS on Saturday and asked to meet her for coffee. I chose that day because, ironically, her husband and my wife had gone on an overnight trip together. I found out from their messages on the iPad. The lies they were going with were, my wife was staying at her sister's for the weekend to help with the kids, while her sister's husband was away on a business trip, and her husband was going away for a work-related project. The truth was, my wife and my husband were taking a trip out of town together, and were staying at a hotel, all paid for by the Casanova himself. I showed her their messages on the Telegram app, pictures included, all of it. She told me she noticed him feeling distant and withdrawn a few months ago. She thought it was just work stress and had no reason to suspect he was cheating. Finding out that her husband was in fact cheating, and with my wife, who is also her friend, came as a blow to her. We chatted some more, and I gave her my lawyer's number as she considers her options. Sunday night, my wife returned from her sister's house. She walked through the door and greeted me with kisses, saying she missed me, after she had spent the weekend with her lover. Her ability to compartmentalize is almost diabolical. I sat her down and told her we needed to talk. I had the whole conversation recorded without her knowledge. Following lawyer's advice, I live in a one-party consent state. Here's how it went. I asked her to promise to be honest with me. Of course, baby, but she was nervous. Then I asked her a series of questions. Do you love me? Yes. Are you happy with me? Yes, of course, baby. Have I been a good husband to you? Do I treat you right? Yes and yes. WTH is going on? Please humor me. Okay. Have I ever done anything to hurt you, whether physically or emotionally? No, of course not. WTF. Okay. So if you're happy with me, then why are you cheating on me? She stared at me in shock for a good minute, and then immediately started denying it. This went on for a little while, and then I just told her to drop the act because I found out the truth. Eventually, she broke down and admitted to kissing a guy who had been hitting on her at a bar during a night out with her girlfriend a few months ago. I don't know why, but at this point I started laughing because the whole thing was just absurd. She not only cheated on me, she had taken every opportunity she could find to cheat on me. I asked her if that was the only time she cheated. She swore up and down that it was the only time and that it was a moment of weakness, that she was drunk, and it had meant nothing. I said nothing. I gave her my lawyer's business card and said I filed for divorce. I hadn't yet. I wanted to talk to her just once first to see if there was anything left of our marriage to salvage. And that if she wanted to reach me, she should call my lawyer. She cried, begged, apologized, and then when I started packing a suitcase, she shifted to gaslighting me, saying I was throwing away everything we had over a mistake. And the worst part of what she said was I had no one else in the world. Why would I leave the only family I had left? This stung because I told her she was my only remaining family after my parents died, and there was no one else I could depend on, only for her to throw those very words back in my face. I left that night to a hotel where I am staying until I find a new apartment. Yesterday, I officially filed for divorce. Edit. I didn't tell her that I knew about the affair after she said she kissed some random guy at the bar. She ended up finding out from her. The OBS confronted him and called her up as well and gave her. The OBS was really upset when I told her and couldn't keep it in. I don't blame her. He really did her dirty. Her mom is sick, and she has been going out of town a lot to be with her. And instead of supporting her, he had been using that time to get with my wife. I didn't, because I was blindsided by her telling me she kissed a random guy at a bar. It may sound insignificant compared to the double life she has been leading with my friend, but in that moment, I think I started realizing how badly she wanted to cheat on me, and it came as a shock. I was too angry to say anything to her without blowing up in her face. So I just left. It's hard to explain why. It just made more sense to leave than to try and find out why she'd been sleeping with my friend after I heard that from her. When I left the house, she kept calling me that night and leaving me messages. When the OBS called her the next day and also confronted her husband, she stopped trying to reach me. It's been crickets from her since, and him too. I put two and two together because around the time OBS messaged to tell me she confronted him and called her, I stopped getting calls from my wife. AITA? Some updates from the last time I posted. My wife was served the divorce papers last week. I am still at the hotel and close to finding a new apartment. Last week when I left, I forgot to take iPad with me. I picked it up when I went back a couple days later to grab clothes and other stuff. Apparently, my wife had a fallout with her friend, who was with her at the bar, accusing her of being the one who told me about her kiss that hot guy. Her friend is no longer speaking with her, it seems. After everything went down, his wife threw him out, and he's been staying at his sister's place. She and I have been talking. She found a lawyer and is filing for divorce. She has informed our few common friends about what's been going on, and they've all cut off contact with them. Also, the asshole came by my place and spent the night with my wife twice last week. She has also been messaging her sister, who, it turns out, knew about the affair. My wife found a lawyer, apparently, and was complaining to her sister that her lawyer explained the asset division and confirmed she has no claim on my inheritance and that she thought that was unfair. Now, here's the gut punch. All those conversations about finding an apartment together and becoming official have significantly cooled since my wife's visit to her lawyer, which I found odd. A few days ago, I got a message from her asking if we could put a pause on the divorce proceedings. She said she loves me, thinks we're being crazy about this, and that everyone deserves a second chance. She even hit me with, "I can't live without you" BS. If I didn't have the iPad, I might have thought she was genuinely remorseful. But knowing what she's been up to all week, I knew this only came after she realized she won't be entitled to a cent of my inheritance. Honestly, that hurt. I am following my lawyer's advice, who told me not to respond. The more I think about it, the more disgusted I am by her, my friend, and her sister. The fact that her change of heart seems to stem entirely from her discovery that she won't touch my inheritance is beyond disturbing. I always intended to use that money for a trust fund if we had kids, something I told her countless times. I didn't touch it because it reminded me of the trauma of losing my parents. The level of disrespect she has shown not only me, but also now my parents, who loved her and treated her like a daughter. I'm just glad they're not here to see this. I met up with his wife over the weekend. She's my friend too, and she's been going through a rough time, especially with her mom's health issues on top of this whole mess. I told her about the messages. Long story short, she had been reconsidering the divorce after her husband tried to reconcile with her. But once I showed her the messages about my inheritance and pointed out how their messages have cooled, she saw things differently. She also shared something that struck me. Apparently, a few months after my parents passed, her husband had made a comment about how I was a lucky son of a for inheriting their money. She confronted him then, shocked he would call me lucky after losing them, and he backtracked, claiming he didn't mean it that way. At the time, she brushed it off, but now she is second-guessing his motives. It seems far-fetched, but it's starting to sound like she thought she would get her some after divorcing me and start a new life with him. Either way, their behavior is despicable. I have been trying to look after myself. I started therapy, I've been going to the gym almost obsessively, and trying to stay away from alcohol. I am trying so hard to put on a strong exterior. Some of my friends have said it's a little scary how cold I've been, but it's the only way I can go about my day-to-day without losing my mind. The nights are very rough. I struggle with sleep. I sometimes drink to help me through it. I'm not proud, and sometimes I cry myself to sleep. Edit: I won't be posting any further updates in the near future, unless something unexpected happens or in need of support, which I would use a different sub for. I will only post another update once the divorce has been finalized, which won't be for months. Thank you all for the advice and support. OP's fear and suspicious behavior about his wife's actions are completely justified. His wife has been somewhat unfaithful in their relationship, which is why his reaction and doubts are understandable. Despite receiving a lot of love and support from him, his wife still cheated on him. His need for reassurance and checking her phone is a valid point to consider. As for OP's wife, she is in the wrong for being unfaithful, so I would rate her the 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. OP, on the other hand, is not in the wrong, so he gets a 0. Let's now jump onto the last story from National-Ad 4614. Should I keep trying to make my marriage work? I'm 31F, and my husband, 31M, have been together since 18 and married for 10 years with 3 separations. We have a near 10-year-old child together. I always find myself back with him because of his promises for a better relationship and the promise of a unified family. There's a long backstory that goes back to conflicts with us, in-laws on both sides that I won't get into. The basis of our problem are that he's lied to me many times over the years, big ones being losing 3 jobs and then pretending to go to work for weeks until he is caught in his lie. Smaller ones being a lot of missing money for rent because he bought vapes, tools, and pot, all the while swearing he didn't make those purchases. This leaves us in financial stress and me working long hours for many years. He got to do 2 years, almost 3 of stay-home dad, but oftentimes forgetting to feed our child meals or changing diapers through the day because he has a video game addiction. Got to a point where I had to grocery shop during my lunch breaks, meal prepping after 16-hour shifts and days off. I only had 2 to 3 days off a month to do laundry, dry visits, meal prep, and cleaning, as well as FaceTime during slow work times to make sure child was eating and changed. He finally was stable in a job. I quit my fast food job, a perused 2 part-time teacher job. I started to volunteer time at my child's school and started up a business that had a low startup cost. Things were finally looking up. Then recently he got fired again. Then pretended to go to work for a week before I caught him in his lie. He swore for days he was lying about losing his job and that he's a changed man. I was angry but let it go and looked for another job. I was angrier about the lies than him losing his job. I then had him call his mother so he could tell her what happened and ask for some financial help so we could float while he gets another job, or I am third job. Noted that my family also helped financially recently due to an illness I was diagnosed with. We had a few other families with it, and my parents know how bad it gets. I also was hoping she would put some perspective his way, but she blamed me, asking why I got to stay home. I hadn't been a stay-home mom since our child was 6 months old, why I got to have play money, and that my priority wasn't what she deemed in the right place. My family has home-cooked meals every night. We eat out maybe once a month to 4 months. I furnished my house with free furniture or stuff I refurbished. I haven't bought new clothes for myself in over a decade, except for a new dress every year for my child's B-Day photos. Only time I spend money on clothes and shoes were for my child. I never spent more than 4,000 USD in our time together for my business. Something to note, I've struggled with his video games addiction for years, and he's dealt with me seeing other people during our separations, which he and his mother considers infidelity. Today marks 3 weeks of his unemployment. He went to 1 interview and got denied. I've not heard of him applying for more. He only played video games since losing his job and not helped with housework. I found out he almost lost his unemployment claim because he hadn't completed the 1 requirement he needs to do to continue claims. I lost it and called his mother to ask if we can take some of the money she sent to buy him a plane ticket to her because she has to take him. I did attack her with this angrily. I will admit that, but I've never called her before, and when I did it was always with my husband to wish her happy holidays or birthdays, but I didn't know what else to do. I tried being patient. I tried talking him through things. We tried splitting and getting back together. IDK what I was thinking his mother could do. I'm at a mental state where I feel like my life just needs to be done, but I can't afford professional help. I was desperate that maybe his mother could give him or us some advice or give us space. My hopes were that she would tell him he needed to keep his jobs, to step up and help in this marriage, or that this wasn't how she raised him to be. Or at the very least, take him for a while so I could have some breathing time to fix all this. I wanted to send him away somewhere he had support because he didn't make friends close enough. He could just stay somewhere here. Worst of all, I worked my long hours while sick and finding out I had lupus for over 8 years. I'm in chronic pain and always sick, but I still work. I once had a stroke at work and had to go to the hospital, and another time worked a whole shift before finally getting to a hospital for a kidney infection failure. But he never once stepped up. Her only response to me was, "Oh Lord, handle it like a grown woman," and hung up. She then told my husband when he called her back that my attempts of hurting myself were just attention cries, and that I dragged her into our marriage. I just want so bad my instant peace for once for him to tell her everything that's happened in the years we'd been together. That I hadn't been a stay-home mum, and every dollar I've made had gone into the household. That there had been years I've worked for ungodly amounts of hours, but still provided home-cooked meals. I'm sick and can't afford treatment or medications. Without treatment, there is no telling how quick my health will fail. Should I finally call it quits and leave my husband, and finally live my life with my kid how I want until the end? Or am I just delusional and completely in the wrong here? I know we are adults, but I just wanted him to get some guidance. I just didn't want to play mother and wife to my spouse anymore. There are too many red flags. I don't think there would any advantage in trying to fix the marriage. OP need to openly communicate with her husband about her concerns And if he doesn't change his ways, OP should leave him and move on. OP's husband is an AH, a big AH for his irresponsible behavior. As for scores, I would rate OP's husband 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.